that one needs to prepare for the GMAT. So I see there are a lot of you who are already live, and without any further ado, let's get started. But just want to do a quick voice check. So if you guys can hear me loud and clear, if my audio is clear to all of you, then please let me know in the poll here, which says, can you hear me clearly? If you can hear me clearly, just say a yes. If you can't, then say a no. So that way I will get to know if you can hear me or not, and accordingly we can get started. So great, guys. So let me know in the poll if you can hear me. And in the meantime, those of you who are already here with us, there are more and more people joining every minute. You guys can tell me more about yourself in terms of how long have you been studying for the GMAT? Are you completely new to it? Have you done some bit of prep earlier? If yes, then how much? And if any questions you have in mind, put them down in the chat. I will try to, obviously I will not be answering them right away, but I will take them up as and when the right time arrives during the session. Okay, so please feel free to share your questions, and thank you so much for letting me know that my audio is clear. Great, guys, thank you so much. So today we are gonna focus on what is the right action plan that a working professional should follow. So the session today is gonna be focused completely around working professionals, the challenges that a working professional faces while preparing for the GMAT, and how do you navigate those challenges as a working professional and get to the 99th percentile, which is like a dream score for anyone. So I will be covering all those things, and but obviously since I'm covering general points here, which is definitely going to help you around with different areas also. But if you want to get more personalized in discussion, or with, you can schedule a call with our team, and most likely if you're lucky you might get to speak to me also. So I'm going to share the link for that in the chat here. So in case you want to have a discussion about your specific case, how we can help you at GMAT to improve your result in GMAT, feel free to schedule a call on my calendar. Okay, so let's get going. A quick intro about myself. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Piyush Periwala. I'm a strategy consultant, and I have close to a decade of experience of helping students get into top tier B schools. You think about a tier 1 B school across the globe, and I have sent multiple people to that school. Okay, so I have a decade of experience helping people starting very from their journey of GMAT, preparation for the MBA entrance test, and all the way to their applications. In fact, till date, there hasn't been a single case of student who has worked with me on the application journey and hasn't made it to his dream B school. So I am really proud about that I have been able to be a part of students' journey, helping them get to their dream B schools, and that's what motivates me. I have myself taken both the GMAT and CAT. CAT, for those of you who are from outside India, it's a India-focused test. Basically, if you want to get into top schools in India, you generally take the CAT with less experienced guys, basically. And I've taken the GMAT as well, and I've prepared and taught as a tutor for both the tests. I scored 740 on GMAT Classic when, like, it was long back, obviously, and my quant score was a 50 and verbal was 41. So quant score was around, I would say, 85 percentile. Verbal was 93 percentile overall. And I scored a 99.9 percentile on CAT. And personally, I like analyzing trends and data to come up with strategies. So making strategies out of things is what my area of expertise is. And today's session is around strategy. So you're going to learn a lot around how to go ahead with the GMAT. Okay, so let's first understand, like, because I see there are many people who are starting their GMAT prep journey. Isha is saying I'm new to GMAT studies altogether. And around this time of the year, when we're sitting in February and March, there are a lot of people who are just very new to the idea of GMAT. Now, to prepare for GMAT, you need to also have a sense of timeline with respect to what is your end goal. See, idea is anyone who is taking the GMAT is generally taking the GMAT to do higher studies like an MBA or a PhD or a let's say MS in finance or something like that. So if you're doing a MBA for higher studies or an MIM for that matter, you need to be aware of the timelines that are there. So if you're looking at schools in India like the IIMs or ISB, this year both of them had similar timelines for round one. Like they have the round one in August mid, and round two is the second round of applications. Again, all these schools have multiple rounds of applications, like round one, round two are generally there, and round three are also there for most of the schools. Now, round one applications for IIMs and ISB are in August. Round two application for IIMs is generally October mid, and round two for ISB is generally December end. This year it was December mid. So it depends. Basically, ISB has been playing around with the deadlines a little bit, but for IIMs, the deadlines has been pretty much aligned for a long time, right? So Manav, again, ISB can do it in August this year, so it's most likely going to be August is what I feel. They're not released the round one deadlines yet, but it's most likely going to be around August. But let's see how it's going to be. So the idea is that if you're looking at Indian B schools, you should be targeting somewhere around August to kind of fill your applications, and understand that to make a good application, we generally recommend that you should give yourself about 1 to 2 months time. Okay, so if I take it on the higher side, like 2 months, then if you work backwards, if you want to put your application in August mid, then you should have been done with the GMAT by June mid somewhere. Okay, so middle of the June is when you are looking at, if you are looking at Indian B schools primarily. Okay, so that is something which you need to understand. Now, if you're looking at European schools or US schools or Canadian schools, generally for US and Canadian schools, the first round deadline is somewhere between middle of September to middle of October. Almost same thing for European schools, middle of September to most likely end of September. That's when the round one happens. Round two for most of the US schools and Canadian schools will be in January directly, which is post Christmas. So their round two is generally post Christmas. Okay. On the other hand, for European schools, they generally have one more round between this September and January round. There's another round in January, definitely, which will be round 3 for them. But there's another round which is in October end to November 1st, second week or so. So think of it this way, that if you're looking at a US school, for that matter, Canadian or European school, in the first round, then you need to be ready by September mid, because that's when it starts. So in that case, you can take the GMAT even by July mid, and you still have 2 months of time to work on the application part. And generally for foreign B schools, we recommend having about 2 months of time, because it takes a lot of time to put across a strong application. And again, you can fill the application in a 7-day period also, 10-day period also. But if you want to really research well about the schools, understand how you fit into the program, present the same to the B school in a very practical, narrative driven manner, a story based manner, then you need to give yourself time. And generally, whenever someone comes to GMAT for the application journey, we always recommend them to have that kind of time. In fact, there are people who have already started with us on the application journey for round 1. There are people who have already started because they want to make sure that they're not just telling their stories right, they're also ensuring that in a way they are working on their weak areas. So if you start working on the application from right away, you will have some time to fill up your gaps. If you have certain things which you can cover through some online courses or some other things, you can always do that. So it's always important to get the right story right. Okay, what is the timeline for Asian schools? So again, NCR, Anway, I consider it as a European school. So you see the timeline there. For schools like NUS or schools in Singapore, it's similar to the timeline that you see for IIMs, ISB over here, ISB, and like August, mid, September, beginning first week or something is generally when they have the deadlines with them. Okay, so I hope that helps. Now, generally applying in R1 is better than R2, not because of success rates. Obviously, a lot of people will tell you that, okay, you know what, the chances of getting into an admission in R1 is better than R2. That's not really true. If you look at data provided by B schools, percentage of people getting in R1 and R2 are very, very similar. It's not that a B school is gonna just take your case if you are applying in R1. It's not like that, because any top B school will always look at good students, right? So the difference between R1 and R2 is not so much so about acceptance rate. There is only a little bit of difference in that. But the main difference is that if you apply in round 1, your chances of getting a scholarship increases. And you see a scholarship in bold over here because it's a very, very important thing for many, many people. Because MBA is definitely a very, very costly degree, right? Again, the ROI is amazing. That's why you guys are here and you want to pursue it. I totally understand. But scholarship is something which is very critical for most people. And if you really want to have a shot at scholarship, round 1 is your best chance. In fact, if I tell you some data of our own students, if you compare over the years, people who have applied in round 1 usually end up getting about 1.5x or 2x the scholarship that people who apply in round 2 get. That's the number that is like a small sample set of the people that you have very closely worked with. So I'm just comparing people with similar profiles applying in round 1 and round 2. So the scholarship, the chance of getting a scholarship is much higher, simply because if you apply in round 1, there are 2 reasons. One is that these schools know that you have a shot at applying to some other schools in round 2 as well. And if you, let's say, get into a better program in round 2 or slightly better program in round 2, you might end up taking their seat instead of the better program seat instead of theirs. So they kind of lure you in by giving you a higher scholarship in round one. And then the second reason is obvious, that in round one they have the full kitty of scholarship available to them. The fund is available to them, so they are slightly more open towards like giving scholarship compared to, let's say, when they're slightly having a lesser fund in round two. Okay, so these are two main reasons why scholarships in round one is very high. In fact, a lot of our students who worked with us for the application journey this year even have gotten almost 50% scholarship from colleges like Duke, Tuck. In fact, Tuck gave a student around 70% scholarship in round one. Okay, so you guys have a really good shot. So if you want to get ready for GMAT in round one, for Indian B schools, you should be targeting GMAT around June mid, and for foreign B schools, you should be targeting GMAT around July mid. Again, it's not that people don't take it after that. There are people who manage it after that as well, but these are the ideal timelines. Okay, Isha says, are the timelines for MBA executive courses 10 to 15-month programs as well? Yes, so these are the same timelines overall. So all the MBA programs in India that I talked about are executive MBA programs that I'm talking about. All the foreign B schools like US, Canadian, and European schools, these are like executive programs only. Like again, they call it normal MBA, but when I say executive, I mean these are for people who have 4 or 5 years work experience usually. Okay. Now, coming to the main point then. So what we started with is when to take the GMAT. Now, what should be our action plan for GMAT? I'll go deep into every single step, but right now I'm going to show you at a broad level what should your different phases be. So your GMAT preparation should be divided into 3 phases. The first phase of preparation is known as your learning phase, where you are doing the heavy lifting or going through every topic within quant, verbal, and data insights. You are understanding every single concept. You are solving almost, let's say, close to 1,500 questions and getting used to the conceptual knowledge tested on GMAT, and also to a great level to the process that is required to solve questions. Here your focus is on learning mainly. So if you do this phase well, this is where you should target. By the end of this phase, you should be able to reach the score range around 605 to 645 basically. So this should be your first target, that okay, I complete the learning phase, and by the end of learning phase, if you take a mock test or you see your projected score, that should showcase something around this mark. Now, to complete the learning phase, it usually takes between 200 to 250 hours. So you can calculate backwards, like if you're giving, let's say, 20 hours a week, then it could take you anywhere between, let's say, 10 to, let's say, 12 weeks of effort to complete the learning phase. And these numbers are all mentioned keeping an average test taker in mind. Okay, average test taker who is not someone who is very, very great or excellent at studies, very intellectual, because we have seen people taking the GMAT with GMAT Viz, completing that in 2 months and scoring a 770 also on GMAT. Okay, so there are many people who have done such things. There are more like you can even check out one of the stories. I know many of you would want to check it out. So I'm sharing one such story of Mantavya, who scored just in 2 months 770, which is like 99th, almost close to 100 percentile on GMAT. So you can get there as well. But all the timelines that I'm showing right now over here are for average students. If you are an excellent student, you have been in the top, let's say, 4 or 5 percentile of your class, this timeline could very well be around 100 to 130 hours for you. Okay, it could be as much as less as this as well. So this number that you see is for an average test taker. The second phase of your learning is around fine tuning, where what you're doing is now you have learned, like in the first phase, you have done everything. You have learned concepts, you have solved questions, you have done most of the heavy lifting. In the second phase of your journey, you are basically working on your weak areas solely. So you're identifying where you are going wrong, where are the where your timing is poor, where you are getting the harder questions wrong, and you're working on those specific areas. Now, again, for an average test taker, this phase will take 50 to 100 hours. It's mostly 50 hours if you do it right, if you have the right strategy with you. 50 hours is something which should be sufficient for fine tuning. But in worst case, if you don't do it right, if you make a lot of mistakes, it could go up to 100 hours. If you are an excellent student, this would most likely be 20 to 30 hours of effort for you, not more than that, basically. Okay, I'm just mentioning that as well. Like this is for average students, the ones which are there on the slide by default. The ones which I'm writing on bottom, basically this is for excellent students. You can think of it this way. Okay, so this is the average, this is the excellent data. Okay, that's how you can look at it. All right, now the last phase, which pushes your final score to a 99 percentile, close to that, is the mock stage, where you take a mock test and get the 750. Now again, remember, I'm asking you to take most of your mocks here, bulk of the mocks here, not in the first two phases, because first two phases are about learning. Basically, this is learning, this is improving, and this is improvising. Okay, based on whatever you have learned, now is the time to improvise and understand what are the test taking strategy for GMAT. And this should take 30 to 50 hours for an average test taker. For an excellent test taker, anywhere between 10 to 20 hours should be sufficient. So if you're an average test taker, the total prep time of GMAT preparation should be close to about 350 hours, anywhere between 300 to 350 hours, which is close to 4 months of effort. Basically, if you're an average test taker, if you're an exceptional test taker, not like exceptionally brilliant, I'm saying excellent test taker, generally in the your scores have been pretty good, then about 150 to 200 hours of effort is what you would need. So that's about close to 2 months time. Okay, so that's the approximate idea. Now let's get deeper into each of the stages. I know this is just to give you an overview how the preparation should be, but now we will talk about each of the stages in depth. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And this is the same structure that we follow in GMAT Viz, by the way. So if you work with GMAT Viz, this is the same structure that we imbibe in our platform, in our GMAT Viz learning platform. And even for anyone like who is, let's say, a retaker or someone, we have this learning phases divided in our coursework. So first step is the learning phase. Now, in the learning phase, it's very important to understand your target score as well. So let's say you're targeting 715 on GMAT, and there are two different types of people, and you need to set your target scores according to that. So there are people who are good in one section, as in very good in one section, exceptionally good in one section. You can think of it that way. They are very strong in an area. There are people who are equally good in all sections. So if you are good in one section, then you need to maximize your score on that. It's very important that you capitalize on the score. Now, it could seem very obvious to many people, but that sometimes obvious things are also not easy. Sometimes people think, okay, if you're very good in one section, you should focus on the other. That's not always the right thing to do. If you are very good in one section, it's important to maximize your score on that. And then obviously you have to look at the weak area also, but you have to at the same time maximize your score on the good section. If you're equally good in all sections, then you try to balance the target. Now, let's say your target score is 715, which is very close to 99 percentile. Okay. Now, 715, by the way, is a score which will probably get you into any top B school across the globe. Whether you want to get into a Stanford or a Wharton or a Harvard, this score will work for every school. Okay. So they've chosen that kind of a score. Now, in the GMAT Focus Edition, let's assume that if your good section is quant or DI, because generally quant and DI are very, very similar skill sets, like they require very similar skill sets. So if you're good in any one of the two, your target score should be around a quant 89, D 85, and verbal 83. Now the highest is quant 90, D 90, and verbal 90. So it's out of a scale score of 90 basically. So this should be your goal overall. Now if you are very good in verbal, then your goal should be maximizing your score in verbal, which is to take it to around, let's say, a verbal 88, quant 84, and the DI 83. On the other hand, if you're equally good in all three sections, then try to balance out your score. So 85 in all three would actually be the best possible score for you, because then you don't have to put in extra effort on any specific area. You have to balance the target. Okay. So are the target scores clear to all of you? Let me quickly ask in a poll. Are the target scores clear to all of you guys? Quick yes, no here. Are the scores, the methodology at least clear to all of you, how you should think about your target scores? Okay, let's see who more responses. And if you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask in the chat. I love when you ask questions, and I'm okay with you asking questions during the session. And I love that. I'll definitely take up all your questions as and when the time is right as well. Great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that all of you are clear with the score ranges. Okay. So the target score being set, you know how much effort you have to put in. So what many people do is that they start with taking a mock test also. So if you want, you can do that. You can know exactly where you stand today. Let's say, for example, this is the target score that you're aiming for. Okay. This is the target score that you're aiming for. You take a mock test and your score ends up, let's say, being 80 in quant, let's say 79 in DI, and let's say it ends up being 74 in verbal. Then you know that you have to do a lot of effort. You have to put in a lot more effort in verbal compared to the effort you have to put in quant. Okay, so you kind of know where you start, how much effort you need to put in, and overall that really, really helps. Now, once your target score is set, you know what your target score looks like. the second step and the most important step is to get started. And trust me, for many people, getting started itself is a very big problem. And obviously, I'm not just talking about getting started as in just starting researching about, okay, what the GMAT is, attending sessions like these that I'm doing right now. It is also important to actually get started, which means started studying in a proper fashion, in a regular fashion, not just having a wish to study. Okay, that's important. And to have that right mindset is important, and to have that a right schedule is very important. And as a working professional, trust me, the biggest challenge that most people face is this first thing that you see on the screen: fixing a slot. Many people don't do that. They just study alongside what they are doing. Again, they treat it like a vocational course or a hobby, that okay, if I get time, I'll do it. Sometimes they do it in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the evening. If their work is very hectic on a specific day, they might not even study. That's the wrong thing. Trust me, your GMAT is not gonna get under control. You're not gonna get the right target score unless you study in a let's say very consistent fashion. So first, fix a slot that okay, every single day I'm gonna study from X to Y. Okay, that X to Y could be anything for you. Preferably in the morning is what I recommend if you're a working professional. Why? Can anyone tell me what is the benefit of studying in the morning? Okay, I've been speaking for a long time. Let's hear it from you guys. What is the benefit of studying in the morning? Why am I asking that? Any thoughts, guys? Why am I recommending that? Fresh mind. Sanchit says that. Okay, so this is consistency. Divya says hell tired by night. Okay, I like Divya's viewpoint, and yeah, thank you so much for that, telling me that. And that's one of the biggest reason. Honestly, there are a lot more distractions. Yeah, Chinthya, thank you so much for coming in, chiming in. You just stolen the words from my mouth, actually. So generally, what happens is that as working professionals, you never know when your day is going to end. And in many work organizations, I see that work is very demanding. You never know, like if there's a crucial project going on, there's some bug that comes up, there is some additional work that comes up, you never know, you might have to extend your day, and then at the end of the day you might feel tired, you might just want to sleep. Even if you start to study, you might not be feeling fresh. So generally, morning slots are the best slots. Now, I don't study in morning myself because I am a night owl. Okay, I am a night person. I am at my peak awareness, or let's say concentration, between 10 p.m. and 12 p.m. That's my slot, right? I work best around that time. So I personally study. If I have to study, I'll study at that time. So you can do that. Like I'm not saying that you have to study in the morning, but morning is better because that gives you that consistency. But even if you're taking out a night slot for your studies, make sure that this is sacrosanct. You cannot compromise on this. You have to sit and study on that slot every single day, at least for 21 days. You do this and it will become a part of your life. Trust me. Just first 21 days is the challenge that you have to go through. Make sure you're consistent and get buy-ins. This is a very critical thing, guys. If you are a working professional and you're thinking that, okay, you know what, Piyush has told me I have to fix a slot, I'm going to fix a slot, I'm going to study every day for 21 days, done. There would be problem. There would be people who would come in the way. There would be people who will ask for your time. Maybe your family, could be your boss, could be your friends, could be anyone. But get buy-ins from people who are important to you, who you think can cause, let's say, any deviations from your plan of action. Maybe you have to tell them about the GMAT idea. If it's your boss, you don't want to tell them about something else, that you are doing something around the slot, you're not available, no matter what. Get this buy-in from people around you. Make sure that you do this. Trust me, guys, this is the most important step for your GMAT prep. Now, once you have done that, how to actually get started? Okay, I fixed the slot. I know I've taken the buy-ins. Now how to study? Now there are two categories of people, and we totally understand that GMAT is that every student is different, and that's why GMAT is one of the only courses in the market which has used AI to personalize your learning curve to the maximum possible level. Every student of GMAT gets a different course based on where they are. So what we really understand is that every student is different. So I'm going to talk about two different cases. It is possible that you are someone who takes time to form a new habit. You might take some time to learn a new skill or some time to get into a habit, a new habit. It could be possible that you're someone who is finding it very easy to adjust to a new habit, start something new. For example, I would put myself in category 2. It's possible that some of you could be in category 1. So let's see how people from category 1 should start and how people from category 2 should start. Okay, so let's talk about category 1 first. So if you're someone who takes time to form a new habit, then you should start with your strongest section. For the first 2 weeks, you should start with your strongest section. Okay, let's say out of quant, DI, and verbal. So again, DI is something which you should do towards the end. I'll talk more about that. So start with the strongest section out of quant and verbal. Now, any reasons why am I asking you to do that? Any reasons why am I asking? What do you think could be the reasons? Let's say, why am I recommending people with category 1 to start with their strongest section? What could be the reason behind that? What could be the possible benefits of doing that? Can anyone share their thoughts? Let's see who gets this right this time. And I have some really intelligent people. Really happy to see you all here. Sanchez, Shruti, Divya, Chintya, Anvay, all of you. What do you think is the benefit of starting with your strongest section if you're in category 1? To engage with the syllabus, Kritika says. Great point, actually. I see where you're headed, what you're trying to say here. And that's important, right? Think of it this way, if you're trying to form a new habit and it's difficult for you to generally form a new habit, then you would not want to make things difficult for you in the beginning, right? Because you need to ensure that your motivation is high as you move forward. And thank you, Divya. Use the same word. Motivation will be high because we are good at that. Exactly. So it's important for you to stay motivated. You don't want to get into a zone where you feel threatened, where you feel weak, where you feel worried that could you even get a 99 percentile. So don't do that. So first 2 weeks is when you start with the strongest section, and just 2 weeks, right? You're not supposed to finish your strongest section. That's the wrong thing to do. So first 2 weeks, start with the strongest section, get some motivation, get some scores going in the right direction. And what is very important is that you don't burn yourself out in the beginning. That's another important thing. So this might sound something different from what you would have expected, but yes, this is right. So if let's say you have 2 hours available in a day to study, in the beginning, in this first 2 weeks, don't give 100% of your 2 hours to GMAT. Don't study for 2 hours. Study for 75 to 80% of that, as in study for 1.5 hours instead of 2 hours. Don't push yourself too hard. Okay. It's also about building the right momentum. Okay. What is suggested that should we complete one subject at a time? No, Divya, that's what I was coming to. You should not do that. You start with your strongest section, but don't complete that. And that's my third point. So once you have completed 2 weeks and let's say you have started giving more than 20 hours a week, then you should study both quant and verbal at the same time. And quant and verbal should be done first, then DI should be worked upon, because DI it tests you on the skills that you will learn in quant and verbal. So technically, if you do in this sequence, quant and verbal first and then DI, it will actually help you save at least 30% of your prep time comfortably. You will be able to save that for sure. Okay, so make sure that you do in this way. So what I'm recommending is, if it takes you some time to build a new habit, start with the strongest section out of the 2, quant and verbal, whichever is your strongest. Study for 2 weeks. And in these 2 weeks, you don't give your 100% of your time. Try to give 75 to 80% of the available time. And then after 2 weeks are done, and you are, let's say, giving 20 hours or more per week, then you start doing both quant and verbal. Okay, then you can obviously give more time to your weaker section, less time to your stronger section. You can do that. But by this time you reach here, you have built enough momentum on your side to kind of continue your studies. So that's the benefit of this. Okay, now, as I said, your sequence of studying should be quant and verbal first and then DI, because I would say DI is like, you can think of DI as, let's say, 70% quant and 30% verbal. Okay, think of it this way. It's mostly a combination of these two. So that's the best way to kind of study. Now, going back to our 2 categories. Okay, remember, these 2 are the categories that we talked about. So first category we have already taken care of. Let's talk about the second category now. Okay, what should people in the second category do? So if you're someone who finds it fairly easy to form a new habit, then you should right away start with your weakest section. Okay, whatever is your weakest section, you can start with that, and you can spend 100% of your time available from day one itself. So you're someone who finds it easy. I myself, I'm in category 2. So when I started my GMAT preparation, I started with my weakest section. At that point of time, it was verbal, and I ensured that from day one itself, I was giving 100% of my time. So this information which I'm sharing is not just my understanding. It's based on, as I said, 10 years of rich experience helping students prepare for GMAT, score the best scores possible, and based on that, these are the best advices that I'm giving you. Okay, now this is the first part of setting the time. Okay, you have just done the slots, so set the time slots, understood how to start. Now let's get deeper into what to do exactly in phase 1, learning phase. Okay, so we have understood the broad aspect of it, how to start, how much time to give. So create a weekly action plan. Break down this learning phase into week-wise targets, because if you don't have week-wise targets in front of you, it will be very difficult for you to study. So at GMAT Viz, the good thing is that when you kind of work with GMAT Viz, it asks you some of the important inputs, and then based on that, it creates a weekly action plan for you. Okay, I'll just quickly show you how it works basically. So this is the weekly action plan that you will see on the platform. Every week you will get to know exactly how much effort you have to put in, how many lessons you have to complete, how many quizzes you have to take, and you will see all the activities listed, including quizzes, video lessons to learn the concepts, then more quizzes to follow in a sequential fashion. And the best part is all of this will be laid out in front of you. You'll be able to see your progress. Once you complete some videos, you'll be able to see how many you have completed, how many are left, and once you click on the start button, it will automatically take you to the right screens. You will get to the right screens, you will exactly know what to do. Everything will be laid out in front of you in a very simple way. Okay, so you can do all of that in very simple way from the study plan tab itself. And on the study plan, you will have all the access to the weekly content. So you see everything that you need to do in the current week on your screen. So this way you have weekly targets that, okay, these are the things that I have to complete in the current week. And you will get to see your calendar as well, your upcoming milestones, that when do you have to complete all of that. Now, this is a slightly older video. That's why you see sentence correction here. But our course has already been updated for GMAT Focus. So automatically a study plan will be for GMAT Focus, where you will see exactly by when you will be completing each target. And the best part is that this entire study plan that you see is basically personalized to you. So every activity that is given to you is unique to you. Every action plan, every content is served to you is unique to you. If you, let's say, don't perform very well in certain topics, additional content will be given on that. If you perform very strongly on some topics, content will be cut down on that. So you'll be focusing on the right activities based on your credentials. So the important thing is to get started with the right study plan. Okay, the right action plan. You need to have a week-wise action plan with you to get started in the right way. And if you want to create a free study plan, then you can use this link which I've just shared to create a free action plan using GMAT. And even if you can access some of the free content, check out the free trial, the quality of learning that we provide. Okay, so start with the weekly action plan and then move to like each topic in a sequential fashion. So I'll just help you explain. Now, if you're a GMAT student or you take up GMAT, you don't have to worry about sequencing your studies, because as I said, the platform will automatically do that for you. It will arrange the topics in such a way that you know exactly where to start, what to do next. But let's say you want to still understand how to go about doing it. I'm going to give you a quick idea about that. So in verbal, there are 3 skills that are tested. Comprehension, as in how critically can you analyze and understand each sentence. Your analytical reasoning is also tested. How can you relate multiple sentences together and understand what is the gap in the information being provided, or are there assumptions being taken or not? You can learn that as well. You need to learn that as well. You need to also identify the main idea from a long text or a passage, basically. Now, if you see, these 3 skills are mapped in certain way. So critical reasoning tests you on the first 2 skills only. You're not tested on focus on main point and critical reasoning. RC, on the other hand, tests you on all 3 skills like comprehension, analytical reasoning, and main point. So generally, we recommend that in verbal, you should first work on critical reasoning and then work on RC. In fact, for helping you with your comprehension, we recommend that even before you get into critical reasoning, you need to learn how to break sentences down, basically how to break down sentences into smaller chunks so that you can understand the sentences better. And then you should go to critical reasoning, where you learn how to work with, let's say, 3-4 sentences at a time. And then you go to RC, where you learn probably how to work with 15-20 sentences of individual passages at a time. Okay, so that's the best way to do. So in fact, that's why you will see that in our course we are actually doing some work before CR also in GMAT, is we ask you to break down sentences, and that's something which you will find mentioned as sentence correction, but it's focused more around sentence breakdown rather than grammar part of it. So that really helps you in comprehending things better, and then only you should move to critical reasoning. Okay guys, that should be the sequence for verbal. On the other hand, in quant, there are 27 topics which are tested in the GMAT focus edition. Okay, earlier it was 33, now it is 27. So these sections are divided across these 3 modules: algebra, number properties, and word problems. Now, if you see on your screen clearly, these are intermixed, like interdependent. So it's not like you can start with number properties and do all number properties topics first. You should not do that, because if, let's say for example, you want to learn how to work with prime numbers, it will include working on even odd numbers. It will also include some understanding of exponents. It will also include some understanding of linear equations as well, and so on. So you might need to actually go back to a topic in algebra to work better on prime numbers. Okay, so that's why I would recommend that you follow this sequence. Topic number 1 is the first topic you start with. Topic number 2 is the next topic that you go to. So this is the best sequence to study quant for GMAT focus edition. Make sure that you do it in this way, and GMAT this course will automatically make you work in the same way, so don't worry about that. Now, once you have understood what is the sequence of studying for quant and verbal both, it's important that we now go a step further and learn how to prepare for each topic. Now, this individual line item that you see over here on the screen, let's say mixtures, time and work, time and distance, statistics, all these are topics. We call it topics. Similarly, in critical reasoning, you will have a topic called assumption, you will have a topic called inference, and so on. All this will automatically be there. So if you remember the screen that I showed earlier, where there was one block for prime numbers, that's one topic basically for you. So every topic should be done in 3 stages. You should learn each topic in 3 stages. Stage 1, which is something which a lot of people do, step 1, is to learn the concepts. Okay, whatever concepts are tested in the topic, you should be very, very thorough with them. You should understand every idea, every concept that is tested. So I've just shown on a screen a slight conceptual understanding of, let's say, prime numbers. Again, this is something which most people do, but you have to learn the concepts and understand the concepts from a logical standpoint. Don't try to just mug up the formulas. Okay, so it's important that you understand the logical standpoint behind the formula, how the formula is derived, because in hard questions there will be some twists to the question which might require you to make some changes to the formula or to the data to actually use the formula. So it's important that you understand the concepts from a logical perspective. Now, what is your step 2? Step 2, which is actually the most let's say difficult step, not the difficult step, but a step which is the most overlooked, I would say. Most people do not give enough importance to that. It is to learn the right method to solve questions. GMAT is a test where shortcuts won't work. So if you try to learn shortcuts, it won't work on hard questions and you will get stuck because of that. So try to learn the right methods and use it on all variations. It's also important. So what you will see that there are many people in the market or in the industry who will actually teach you shortcuts, and they show you shortcuts to just give you that wow factor. But what you don't realize as a student is that those techniques or shortcuts that you see, they're only showing you the partial picture. They're only making you apply those shortcuts on easy and medium questions or just few of the hard questions. Learn methods which work on all type of questions. So make sure that you try all variations of questions as well and try to apply those methods and see whether they work or not. That's very critical. So for example, in divisibility, we have this concept that a number can be written as quotient multiplied by the divisor plus the remainder. So there are a lot of questions on GMAT which are like this, that a number n is divided by 12 and it gives the remainder of 5. What is the remainder when the number is divided by 6? So something like that. So let's say n when divided by a divisor d1 gives the remainder of r. What is the remainder when it is divided by d2? Now, in such cases, one variation is that D2 could be a factor of D1. The same example that I talked about. 12 divided by 12, remainder is 5. What is the remainder when it is divided by 6? Variation 2, same variation, D2 is a factor of D1, but this time around the remainder is bigger than the next divisor. Variation 3 is that D2 is a multiple of D1 instead of being a divisor of D1 or a factor of D1. Okay. A variation 4 could be that D2 and D1 are nothing in common, and there could be many more such variations. Okay, so it's very important that you understand all the different types of variations. And good thing about GMAT is that GMAT happens the year round. Okay, it happens the entire year. Okay, you will take the GMAT, you can take the GMAT anytime, right? Now, the benefit of that is, since it is something which happens the entire year, they have to maintain consistency, they have to maintain standardization in the test, and to maintain the standardization they have very specific variations that they test, and that's what GMAT Viz has done. What our team has done is we have done intensive research on all the variations, and we have come up with this neat idea of a concept booster. Now, what does a concept booster do? It actually allows you to solve questions of all different variations from a particular topic. So one time when you start, you will first do one question at a time. You will solve one question. You will get to see the solution of that question in depth. So you do question number 1, you get to see the solution of question number 1, and then you analyze your gaps in the process that you're using, and then you move to question number 2. Basically, you go to step 1 again, you go to question number 2, look at the solution of question 2, and then do question number 3, and so on. And each question, when you move from question 1, question 2 to question 3, question 4, and so on, they will take care of all the variations of that particular topic on GMAT. So every question is handpicked, and it ensures that it covers a different aspect. So the concept booster file is a very, very critical file for anyone who wants to actually get the learning in the right way. Okay, and you will see the concept booster at every place. Like over here, you can see Prime Numbers has these 2 concept boosters. There are more concept boosters in every single topic. Okay, now, as I said, it's not just important to learn all the variations, it's also important to learn the right methods. Don't fall for shortcuts, it won't help you. What are the right methods that I'm talking about? I've mentioned them on the screen. On critical reasoning, you need to do pre-thinking. In reading comprehension, you need to focus on involved and evolved reading. You need to read in a way that you understand everything and relate with that very, very logically. In DS questions, which is a part of data insights, you need to draw inferences. In PS questions, which is a part of quant, you need to follow a 3-step process that we teach in our course. In IR, you need to follow a process of reading the data efficiently. Make sure that you do that. Now, why is it important? Because if you really want to score anything, even close to, let's say, 95 percentile, you don't need to just get the easy and medium questions right. In easy and medium questions, you need to have 90 to 100% accuracy. But in hard questions also, you need to have around 60 to 70% accuracy. And trust me, shortcuts won't work on hard questions at all. So it is important that you get the right methods. Okay, remember these methods. All of these methods are taught in the GMAT Quiz curriculum in depth to you. Okay, now how do you learn the right method? So one part of learning the right method is to understand the method. Obviously, that is something which we will teach through the video lessons in GMAT Viz. But to help you validate the method also, the validation is also very important. See, you learned, okay, I need to pre-think, or let's say I need to draw the inferences from a DS question. But are you really doing that is something you have to do also to ensure that you're going in the right direction. And that's why whenever you solve a question, let's say this is a critical reasoning question in GMAT Viz, basically from GMAT Viz that you see on the screen over here. So whenever you solve a question, at the end of the question, you will see a detailed step-by-step analysis. So for example, over here, you can see the first sentence. This is the first sentence that you see over here. Cultivation, from there are to cultivations. We have done direct analysis of what you should have done when you read this line, what you should have done when you read the next line, what are the analysis that you do, what is the inference that you draw, and so on. So in-depth analysis is provided to you after every question, and this is just the step 1. There is a step 2 and there is a step 3 of answer choice elimination also. All of that cannot fit on a single screen, so I've not shown it to you, but on the platform you'll get to see all of that in a step-by-step fashion to understand where you're going wrong. So it's important for you to analyze the solutions for every single question. Even if you get that right, make sure that you're using the same approach to solve them. That's a very, very critical thing. Now, third step is to practice questions and identify your gaps. So take a topic-wise test after learning the methods and trying to do all type of questions, and try find out your strengths, where you're strong, where you're weak, identify that. And once you have identified your weak areas, then work on the conceptual gaps right away. Because if you don't work on the weak areas right away, those issues will pile up and it will cause more problems in the next topics. So it's important that whenever you learn a topic, you have done some questions on it. If you are not finding, you're not getting a good score around that time, then you work on the gaps over there and fix those gaps, then only move to the next topic. That's very, very critical, guys. Okay, so step one, learning phase. You can do that very easily with the GMAT with study plan, with the GMAT with content. All of that will be taken care of. Now let's move to step two. So step one is taken care of. Step two, fine tuning. Now in fine tuning, we recommend that you work with a mentor, because after you have done the learning phase, in many cases, some people are clueless. Where do you need to work? Where do you need to focus? Where should your attention go? So we say that you work with a mentor. And at GMAT is every student gets a mentor. So you can speak with the GMAT mentor. They will give you specific insights, specific advice based on the time of label with you, based on your target score, based on your strengths and weaknesses. They will look at the GMAT dashboard and see where your strengths and weaknesses lie. And based on that and the methods that you're using, they'll try to analyze that as well. And they will give you the right advice. So you can schedule a call with your mentor, understand from them. And to work on your weak areas, it is important that you devote in the fine-tuning phase about 60 to 70% of your time on your weak areas solely, and the rest of the time should be for general practice. Now, how to work on your weak areas? To try to divide the topics into two level of weaknesses at least. Okay, conceptual gaps and process gaps, or application gaps is how I call it. So conceptual gaps are those areas where your score is less than 60 percentile. Application gaps is where your score is between 60 and 85 percentile. So for conceptual gaps, you need to relearn the concepts, you need to revise the concepts and the formulas, and then solve questions, and then practice 15, learn how to solve questions and then practice 15 to 20 questions. For application gaps, learning the concepts and formulas again will be a waste of your time. So don't do that. Rather, focus more on methodically solving the questions in a methodical way. Okay, don't just go and solve more questions. Try to do them in a methodical way, and here around 10 to 15 questions doing that also could be sufficient if you are doing it methodically. Okay, now if you're a GMAT student, all of this will be very automatic for you. You don't have to worry about identifying where your strengths or weaknesses lie. You can go to the dashboard, it will automatically show you your skill score in different topics and tell you exactly where you're strong, where you're weak. And the best part is, at a click of a button, if you are weak in some concepts, at a click of a button, you can actually work on those concepts right away. So if you click on revise, it will load those videos that you need to revise right away. Okay, and you can go through those videos, cover up your conceptual gaps. It will only load the videos in which you are weak, as you can see here as well. And let's say after that you want to take up a quiz, you can click on solidify concept, mention the number of questions, mention the number of time that you want to take the quiz for. It will automatically create a quiz for you. So it is all automated in GMAT Viz. We use AI to the core to help you with all the things basically. Okay, so just a second, guys. I just give me 1 second. I actually disable the screen share. I think it should be visible to you once again now. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me share it once again. So important to work on your weak areas in a step-by-step fashion. Okay, now very important factor, a lot of people don't take this very seriously, is when should you start timing yourself. Now I totally understand that GMAT is a timed test, but a lot of people make this silly mistake that they start timing themselves from day one. Now obviously you should understand how much time you are taking to solve questions in general, but when I say timing yourself, you should not start worrying too much about timing in the initial stages. In the initial stage, which is the learning stage, focus more importantly on learning the right method. Don't worry about the time, because understand that whenever you're learning a new method or a new method to solve a question or any new thing, you will take extra time to get let's say consistent with it. Okay, let's say for example, when you learn driving for the first time, it took you some time to get used to that, syncing your mind with the gear, with the steering wheel, with both the mirrors, the back mirror, all those things you have to think of at the same time, right? It was very difficult in the beginning, but now if you have driven for some time, you could probably drive and think about something else, or even talk on the phone at the same time. I'm not asking you to talk on the phone and drive, but all I'm saying is that it becomes a second nature to you after some time. So in the learning phase, don't worry about time, rather focus on learning the right method so that your methods are like your way of doing the thing is correct. Okay, and then and the fine tuning stage is when you start timing yourself. You focus on timing in the fine tuning stage. So improve your timing also. Try to, after optimizing your weak areas, take up sectional tests to improve your timing. So if you see, let's say for example in CR your timing is poor, then you can start taking more sectional tests around that. But first work on your weak areas within CR. Otherwise, you will never be able to improve the timing. So first work on your weak areas and then improve your take sectional tests with the timing. Okay, so that's how you can do it. So learning phase, we already talked about that. With the GMAT study plan, you can work on it and you can improve it. Fine tuning, you should, in the fine tuning phase, you should work with your GMAT mentors. Understand from them where you need to put in the effort and energy and work on that. Now that brings us to the last stage, which is the mock stage. So what should your mock strategy be? So by the time you complete your fine tuning phase, you should be close to in this score range, which is a good enough score to get into the top school still. But if you want to push it to, let's say, 98 percentile, which is 715, then last stage is very, very critical as well. What should be the mock strategy? First, learn about the test taking strategies. Basically, understand how the GMAT test works. It's an adaptive test. It's not like other tests where you can just do questions and get the right score. There is some more additional things that you need to do. You need to understand the right strategy. Just to give you an idea, two people with exactly same accuracies can have about 20-30 percentile difference in their score. So one person can get a 60 percentile, the other person could get 80-90 percentile also with the same accuracy. So you need to understand the right strategies. Then you should take one mock test every 3 to 4 days and focus on analyzing your performance in the mocks. If your performance is great, very good, well and good, in which areas are you doing poorly, and understand, try to solve the questions again that you have gotten wrong. So it's very important that you do give at least 2 to 3 hours per mock on the analysis part, basically. Okay, and if your score is, let's say, 50 to 60 points away from your target score, if your mock score, let's say, is 645 and your target score is 705, it's 60 points away from your target score, then don't take mocks every 3 or 4 weeks. Decrease the frequency. Then in that case, you have not done fine tuning properly. You need to do fine tuning properly first. So for that, you need to put an extra effort on fine tuning. Go back to the fine tuning phase instead of staying in the mock phase. That's very critical, guys. Okay, so that's about the action plan that you need to go for if you want to get a high score, a 99 percentile score on GMAT. If you have any other questions about how to study, any other thoughts, please feel free to ask me. I'm gonna help you with these questions. Otherwise, if you want to connect with me directly, you can always schedule a call on our calendar. We will get back to you with more details on the same thing. But if you have any questions for me now, feel free to reach out to me. I've shared my number and my email ID as well over here. You can reach out on us on this, or support@gmatquiz.com as well. So if you have any questions, guys, feel free to share it with me. I'm more than happy to take up your questions and queries now. Okay, guys, I don't see any question till now. So I hope you guys found this session really helpful to understand exactly how you should start, how to go about your preparation. Feel free to reach out to me or our team for more help. And we have been helping like so many students for GMAT, thousands and hundreds of students we have helped. In fact, our score improvement is the best in the industry till date. So if you want to get access to really good content, really good mentors, feel free to reach out to us. We are there to guide you. Okay. So thank you so much for being here today. I hope the session was helpful to all of you. And if it was helpful, do spread your learnings that you had from this session with your friends. Do share it with your friends and let them know about us. Thank you so much, guys. It was great having all of you today here.